Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard.
Hello, and welcome to my playthrough. This game is Stanley's Story. This game is about walking. We just walking. Okay, let's go.
The Stanley Parable is a game that was released by developer Davey Wreden with Galactic Cafe in 2011 using the Source and Unity game engines. The game was originally released as a free mod for the video game Half-Life 2, but was later released as a standalone game. Of course, these are just words. What you're really wondering is, what is Stanley Parable about?
The narrator said, "I go on the door on the left."
The game is formatted as a walking simulator, a style or genre basically de-emphasizing game mechanics. The game is very simple, using WASD to move, E to interact, and the mouse to look around. Instead of focusing on mechanics, the game provides the player with numerous choices that, if triggered, can result in up to 19 different endings, ranging from the death of Stanley to his escape to freedom.
This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
What does choice mean in a game? What adds a lot of depth to the Stanley Parable experience is the sheer number of choices that one has throughout the game. If one decides to follow the main storyline according to the narrator, the experience lasts roughly 10 minutes. By disobeying the narrator and experimenting with the various branching points, however, the game can last hours on end because of the many quirks and different paths that begin to forge.
I guess now we just wait, you know. I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story, wouldn't you agree?
A large question that Stanley Parable seems to ask relates to whether a story is possible within a game or not. Fundamentally, the game is about a story that the narrator wishes to tell.
Oh, no. This is far more open-ended than I had in mind. I'm looking for something more narrow and linear. Something that makes you feel utterly irrelevant.
I do.
This won't do at all. 1 out of 5.
Whether Stanley follows this narrative or not is up to the player.
Oh, no, baby.
You heartless bastard.
So, is the story possible? By disobeying the narrator, has Stanley not forged his own path?
Peace was never an
you wanted to
option.
make a choice after all. Well, this one is yours.
Peace, never an option. Never cross me again, narrator.
This is Janet Murray. Janet Murray suggests primarily that games and stories share similar elements, positing that many different media fundamentally overlap in terms of their form or trajectory of content. She notes that games and stories have two similarities that tie them together: contest and puzzle structures. In this case, it's not totally clear what category Stanley Parable falls into. However, it does seem to contain elements of contest structures, though not of puzzles. Contest is a structure of human experience in which participants have mutually exclusive aims between protagonist and antagonist. Murray offers up examples of parenting, courtship, or war. Similarly, the narrator will try and navigate Stanley throughout the office, whereas Stanley often just wants to do his own thing.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. Was it worth ruining the entire story I'd written out specifically for you?
Oh.
Do you not think I put a lot of time into that? Because I did.
Puzzles can be seen as a structure that involves a contest between the player and the game maker, a challenge of the minds of both that involves rearranging ideas and obstacles to succeed. Murray refers to games like Scrabble in her model. and the model can apply to digital games like Tetris, but the Stanley Parable doesn't quite work here because of its de-emphasis on gameplay mechanics.
I'm looking for some real critical feedback here.
Well, I guess it's alright.
Oh, of course. A 3. Really? Maybe next time we can get you to form an actual opinion, you know?
Sorry. Yes.
Any level of critical thinking or engagement with your surroundings. Does that sound good? Think we can do that? Yes? Wonderful.
A game's story can play out similar to more traditional forms of entertainment. This is related to the concept of cyberdrama, which can be accredited to Janet Murray. Take Groundhog Day, a film where a man's day is reset continuously for the sake of exploring intriguing new scenarios. The Stanley Parable can similarly be described as what Murray calls a replay game, or a loop and grow game. This genre of game employs storylines that have diverging choices at different intervals, where the player can save the game before choosing a path. This allows the player to examine the different paths at a branching point in the game and decide which storyline they would like to continue from. While the Stanley Parable does not allow you to save the game, these branching points are easily accessible due to the short distances involved, allowing the player to interact with different paths easily.
We'll just restart the game from the beginning. And this time, suppose we don't wander so far off track, Okay.
No, I don't
from
like you.
the top.
I don't like you still.
Replay games seem to allow for more choices, but actually entail predetermined paths that ultimately return to the main storyline of the game. These alternate paths are really just interactive illusions, where the player's choice is irrelevant to the narrative of the game, as they all play out pre-coded scenarios. Maybe there really was never any choice after all.
No, I restarted. I swear, I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be... Or did something change?
Choice or no choice, the story of Stanley Parable gets told in an interesting way, one that is unique to games. This is Henry Jenkins. Henry Jenkins identifies 4 different aspects of environmental narrative: evoked narratives, enacted narratives, embedded narratives, and emergent narratives, all of which utilize the game's environment in different ways to add to its narrative architecture.
This is...
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Oh. Okay. Wait. Oh. Okay. Well, that says Mind Control Facility and looks scary, and that says Escape. I want to escape. Run, Stanley,
Although
run!
this passageway had the word Escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
No, Stanley's gonna live. I believe it. Stanley will live.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Jeez, you're scaring me, narrator. Why am I...
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Yes, I think. Oh my lord. Okay, that is ominous.
Superficially, the Stanley Parable's narrative architecture can be best described as an enacted narrative. That is to say, Stanley's movement through game space and the player's interaction with the game's environment is how the story is built. However, the Stanley Parable is more than just that. Upon further gameplay, it becomes clear that the game is a commentary on these sorts of narrative architectures. Somehow, it's able to posit that games have the ability to defy stories, while also being within the confines of the game programming.
Wait! Whoa! I won!
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
Yes.
Should games be an adventure? Stanley Parable has a way of making you question that.
Oh, this is new. Boop.
All right, I've got a solution. This time, to make sure we don't get lost, I've employed the help of the Stanley Parable Adventure Line. Just follow the line. How simple is that?
That's... Okay, we're on an adventure now. We're going on the Stanley Adventure. Stanley Adventure? What's going on? Hello? What? Where?
Nonetheless, ideas of stories embedded in the literal architecture of the world seem to emerge from the woodwork as Stanley forges on. What's going on here? Why was this game built? How did we end up in the backrooms? All of these questions emerge from the details meticulously planted in the environment. It's like Lord of the Rings, a series that may not be in the conversation for literary art, but has an indisputably successful film franchise, largely due to the immaculate visualization of its fantasy world. According to Jenkins, the ability to physically portray the world of Lord of the Rings increases the appeal of the story. Jenkins' argument can be extended to video games as they share the ability of generating spaces. Where video games have the edge, however, is the ability to interact with these spaces in order to pursue a narrative.
This will go here, no, here, and then...
I feel like I'm no longer in control.
Let's see, what does it need? Yes, of course. And just to finish it all off, yes, it's complete.
Gameplay in the Stanley Parable can be described as more of an eclectic experience than play in the traditional sense. As you progress through the game, it becomes increasingly clear that something is off about Stanley and his parable. The levels are a surreal collage of empty office spaces, fluorescent lights, and concrete maintenance shafts, made even more confusing by a combative narrator.
Ooh, look at this. Okay.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here.
There's stuff down
I'm
there.
not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone
Alright.
else can be difficult.
Off we go.
But the fact is that the story...
Ooh.
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Oh dear.
These choices work well with Henry Jenkins' description of an evocative space. The atmosphere a game creates can greatly influence the quality of a story's experience. Jenkins even posits that the architecture of a game space is an important aspect in accordance to the narrative of a game. He says that games can have simple narrative structures and succeed based purely on their graphical realms. In other words, he highlights the significance of environmental storytelling. Similarly, the Stanley Parable has a few atmospheres that evoke various narrative reactions, namely the space ending, the museum ending, and the mind control facility. They act as stark oases of emotion outside of the mundane office spaces.
Ever in his narrow vision
What?
of what this world is.
No,
Perhaps his death
no.
was of no great loss.
No,
like
I
plucking
don't want to
the
die.
eyeballs from a blind
No.
man.
Please
So
no,
he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell,
Stanley, no! No, Stanley! Stanley. Oh my god. Huh?
What is a choice? What is a story? What's a parable? What is a Stanley? These are all questions which confront players of Whedon's work. In the end, interpreting Stanley Parable can feel like looking at a Picasso upside down while constantly rotating your neck. Well, actually, maybe it's more like a Monet, seemingly clear at first, but increasingly messy and obscure the closer you get. Analyzing the narrative trajectory of Stanley Parable seems to miss the point, like expecting a modern art gallery to relay some sort of story beyond its collective emotional potential. In the end, what really matters is that I stayed glued to my computer for hours as I tried to unlock its secrets, something I could never have accomplished with a book. Story or no, I think anyone who has played probably can agree. The game was probably, most likely, about something.